Hello, it's Lion here with HobbiesofaMan once again, and today we're going to be doing another manga review. Today we're going to be looking at the second arc in Mashle, Magic and Muscles. And I already did the book facts in the first video, so feel free to go watch that section if you're interested in that video. I'm not going to mention it here though, so let's just jump right into the premise here. So basically, Mash has to go to the forest because he has class there, and it all goes horribly wrong, and it's a bit of a mess, and really that's all there is to it because there's really only 5 chapters in this arc. So as you can see, I delineated it there with 2 bookmarks. So it is 50 pages into the first segment of the second volume, and about 50 pages from the end of the volume is where it ends, right? So yeah, there you go. That's the amount of chapters there. So let's get right into the plot line here. So Mash and his class have to go meet up at the forest. And we made a new character here called Dot Barrett, who happens to be one of my favorite characters so far in the story. I just think he's really fun and really ridiculous. And he plays off of Mash quite well. So he shows up, and he's kind of this crazy, kind of brazen individual. He's kind of just telling people to, fuck off and stuff. And he's pretty funny. The professor explains the situation. They're basically here to do this sort of battle simulation situation. And they have to beat these giant scorpions. And each scorpion has a stone embedded in its forehead, or in like the top section of its head. And you have to defeat them. You have to collect these things. And depending on how many you collect, you get some coins out of it, right? So it's pretty good. It's kind of developing the idea that these characters are going to try to get into the Divine Visionary test situation, right? So yeah. It turns out that Mash is going to get bullied by this guy called Silva, who I think initially tried to bully Mash in the first volume, but it didn't really work out that well, so he's trying it again, and he's doing much better at it. And then Dot and Mash start fighting for some reason. I don't really remember. It's more of a comedic fight. It's not really a serious one. And while they're fighting, they end up seeing another pair of students also fighting each other. And Dot is kind of this Sanji-esque character. He's like, you see a woman struggling, you go and help her, and so he does. And he stops this guy. He uses his X-Blom attacks, which are pretty cool. And he saves this girl. This girl turns out to be kind of a Black Widow-esque kind of character who is just using Dot and trying to use Mash in order to basically defeat them or something. It's not really clear what exactly she's doing, but she's working with Silva. And she's kind of playing up her interest in Dot in order to get him to fall in love with her through her magic. And then Silva shows up after Dot falls under her spell, and Mash doesn't, because more or less the answer is that Mash just really isn't interested in girls. So anything that has to do with that doesn't really work on him, which is kind of interesting. It does end up with this like funny reaction page where this girl's like, I'm gonna kill this guy because he doesn't fall under my spell, right? And yeah, so they fall under her spell, or they don't in Mash's case. And Silva shows up and he starts fighting them. And Dot shows up and he's like, I'm gonna fight you. And Silva is like, okay, if you can defeat me, or if you can withstand 5 of my crazy attacks, I'll let you go and I'll leave the girl alone and stuff like that. And he kind of shifts that kind of idea a little bit, where he's like, not only do you have to do it, but Mash has to do it as well. And Dot's like, no, I'll take all 10 on myself. And he does, but he gets defeated at the end because the amount of stress that he's under is just so high that he just collapses, right? So Mash steps in, and he decides to beat Silva because, Dot did a good thing, and this guy's still mistreating him, and this girl also mistreats him. So he's just like, okay, it's time to go. I'm going to beat the shit out of both of you. And he does, and it's very good. I quite enjoyed it. The fight was really good, and I enjoyed it. And there was also a very funny scene where at the end he's like, don't worry, I believe in gender equality. So he suplexes the girl as well, and he beats Silva, of course. And it was a very funny, it was a very funny scene. I don't really know why. I just, I found it so hilarious. So I quite enjoyed my time with that. And that's basically it for the plot line here in terms of characters. yeah, there really isn't much going on in terms of characters. We get introduced to Dot. We learn a little bit about him. We learn a little bit about his code, and that's basically all there is to him. I like his magic a lot. It's very interesting. It's kind of an explosion magic, kind of like Konosuba, and I like that. I think it's fun, and I also like the way that he has a relationship with Mash. It's kind of antagonistic, but ultimately not like unfriendly, I guess. World building wise, we learn about the Magia Lupus, which is the secret organization of the Lang Institution, or the Lang House, I guess. And Mash makes a joke about how that's something that he came up with when he was 12. So he's calling them Chunis, Chunibyo, which is like it's like a Japanese term for when teenagers get flights of fancy, where they think they're the main character of the world. And it's kind of like pretty prevalent in manga. It's usually the characters that have like an eye patch that are teenagers, like Megumin from Konosuba. And it's pretty funny. I don't know, like, I thought it was good. And we also learned about white and red mages. So white mages are scholars, and red mages are fighters. And it's pretty interesting that there's that division. Usually you would assume that they'd be both, because you have to study in order to fight. And if you study a lot, you should have a lot of ways to fight, right? So, I don't know. The division there isn't really important to me, but it's interesting that it exists, right? Art-wise, it's really, really good. And, of course, there's still no fan service, so it's still kind of enjoyable for people that are not into that. And ratings-wise, a 4 out of 5. It was fun. I laughed a little bit more about this part than I did the first segment. And I think that's just because this is a part that I haven't really experienced all that often. I think at this point I have read the beginning arc of Mashle about 3 times. And this arc I only read once. So, or maybe this might be my second time reading it. So, it was also stuff that I didn't really remember all that much. So, it was a lot funnier. And I enjoyed the comedy a bit more. So, yeah, that's all there is to it. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, please leave a like, subscribe, and comment down below. Let me know your thought. And thank you guys very much for watching. See you guys later.